Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. My name is Mobby, and today I'm going to give you my deck list for Vegapunk. This is version 2. I did one before. This one's updated to get rid of the banned card, which was Impact, and just some more tweaks so it's more consistent and has more of an overall theme. So if you guys want a list to the deck list, there is a link in the description so you can see them all. Please subscribe and like, it helps the channel grow. Anyways, let's get started. We're going to talk about the leader, the events, the utility cards, the 2Ks, the blockers, and then the attackers. Let's begin with the leader and Vegapunk. And yes, these are all English printed proxy cards. I'm going to be putting out a video soon showing you exactly my process on how I do everything proxy. Alright, so let's start with Vegapunk himself. He is OP07, 5000 power with 2 life. This leader cannot attack. Activate once per turn, rest 1 Dawn. Place 1 5-cost or less Egghead type card from your hand face up into your life or into play. So you have a little bit of leeway whether or not you want to add something as a life. Maybe you want to do it specifically for the trigger, but it has to be Egghead, or you put it into play so you can use the on play, so you have a blocker, so you have an attacker. Alright, so let's begin. We'll talk about all the cards, and then we'll talk about the overall strategy, the pros, and the weaknesses. Let's start with the attackers, right? So let's move Egghead to the side here. Alright, so, and just so you guys know, the breakdown of the deck, let me give you that too. So there are 7 utility cards. 4, let's see, yeah, okay, hold on. Yeah. 7 utility cards. 4 event cards. 12 counters. 8 blockers. 11 mid-range cards. And 8 late-game cards. That brings us down to 31 Egghead cards and 19 other cards. And the reason why I break it down that way is because yes, there is a searcher, so it really does matter. So and the leader, you really need to have Eggheads in your hand. So 31 to 19, total of 50. All right, let's get started. Okiku, this card is extremely powerful. OP06, we are running 4 of these. 4 cost 6,000 on KO. If your opponent has 3 or less life, place the top card of your deck to your life. So this card is really good. I use it in almost every yellow deck that I play these days. I feel like this card just needed a little bit more of a nerf. And yeah, it doesn't have a counter, but the fact that it has 6,000 power has a really good effect, and it has a trigger. I feel like this thing either should have had, it should have just had 5,000 power. It's way too strong. But yeah, this is really good. So your opponent has to deal with it if the conditions are met. Otherwise, you're going to keep swinging 6,000 minimum, right? And the trigger is amazing as well. If your opponent is at 3 or less, play it. So you can't really play it with your leader, but this is just a really good card. Anything to keep your life going, because in this deck, you want to keep adding to your life when it's safe, and then yeah, you just deal with them. So you have 4 of these. You have 3 Kikus. 4. You have 3 Kikus. Okay. Now we have some Atlases. This is our first Egghead card that we're going to talk about. 561. If your life is lower than your opponent, not the same, has to be lower, this card cannot be KO'd by battle. And then the trigger, if your leader is Vegapunk, you're going to be playing this card. Really good solid card just to throw out there. It has a counter, and the trigger is amazing, allows you to just play it. So you usually want to just play it out of your hand, like towards mid or late game. This is not a card that you prioritize putting on the top of your life, but it's pretty good in general. So you're running 4 of these. Next up, you have the super rare Luffy's 561, another Egghead. During the main phase, you may place this card into your trash. If your life is at 2 or less, KO up to one of your opponent's 4 or less, then draw 1 card. This card's pretty versatile. So pretty much the trigger is you can KO up to one of its 4 cost or less characters. It's really good. If you can just throw it out there, maybe get an attack or 2 off, and then KO when you need it and draw a card. It's just a lot of versatility with this card. It's really, really good. I recommend running 4 of these. Next up, we have the Charlotte Katakuris here. 8/8 on play. Put up to 1 character with the cost of 8 or less to the top or bottom of the owners. So you can always use it on your opponent. Let's say you want to, let's say you have a full board and you want to get rid of a blocker or something. Just put it on their life and go swing for game and stuff like that. Or in this deck in particular, I really like using Katakuri to send a lot of my cards just straight back on top of my life because there's a ton of triggers in this. One good example here is throwing the Charlotte Bruley, or another one of our blockers, Shaka, which we will talk about later. So yeah, this is really good, but we're only running 2. It's not necessary, but it's a really fun tech play if you can throw it out. Alright, Next, for our other late game cards, we have Yamato, 9 cost, 9,000 power. KO up to one of your opponent's characters that's cost of equal to or less than both of your and your opponent's life combined. Very powerful. Sometimes in Vegapunk, you start with low health, but you might run away late game, and you have like 4 or 5 plus health. And your opponent, you'll be able to KO more things than you think. Like, unless you're playing against a super aggro deck, you're gonna have a lot of life in. So Yamato is gonna get a good amount of usage on her KO. And even if you are behind, just adding one card from the top of your life afterwards, if you have one or less, such a game changer. So I'm running 3 of these, really good. And then for the other 3 late game cards, we're running these Portuguese Ace. This is OP07 Ace, right? 10 costs. So you gotta be you gotta be aware of the 10 costs. If you use 10 costs this turn, you won't be able to use your Vegapunk ability, but that's okay because this card is really worth it. 10,000 power on play. You may add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to your life, so you simply heal. That's not a cost, that's not a requirement, you just heal. Then, if you have 2 or less, this character gains Rush. Now, it's nice to have the Rush, but hey, if you're far ahead, you have a board, you got nothing else to play, you throw this guy out and you just heal. You just really heal. So it's like a lesser 10-drop Big Mom. So we're running 3 of these. So these are our primary battle cards that we're going to use to win the game. Alright, so let's move over to our blockers. Alright, and you can see almost every card here has a trigger, right? Just so you guys know, there's a million triggers in this deck. That's all you care about. Oh yeah, and by the way, I don't know if he said, but this is face up. So your opponent knows what you're going to be putting up there, but either way, they still have to attack you, right? So they can play around it, but they, yeah. Alright, so running 8 blockers, right? We're starting with the Charlotte Brulees. 3/1/1 blocker, but you primarily want it for the trigger. It's not searchable, but you get to play the card. So you can't necessarily put this on top of your life with the leader ability, but as mentioned, you need board room. Maybe you just need to protect against some extra attacks. Charlotte Katakuri this one back. It's so good. So yeah, you want 4 of these. Next is Shaka's. This is your MVP of the deck. Honestly, there's 2 cards in here that are just 100% mandatory. It's this card and then the Please Save Me card. They are so freaking good. But anyway, this is just a blocker, yeah. 5/6/1 blocker. But the ability is what's really important. If your leader is Vegapunk, you play this card. You play this card not rested, you play it active. So if you just randomly get it off there, you put it back here, you put it back with the Charlotte Katakuri. There was one duel I had where I attacked with him, I put the Katakuri in, and then they have to attack and send it back. It's really good, dude. Like this is like there's no other Vegapunk blockers besides this. So you really, really need this, and you want to play around this as much as possible. Really good card. So these are your 4 blockers. All triggers. Alright, time for the 2Ks, which I said we're running 12 of these. So this is a mix between some of the best 2Ks available right now and some of the Vegapunk ones, the Eggheads. So here's the Gang Beige, not searchable, but it's a 3/3/2. You usually always want to use it as a 2K, or at least the trigger. You guys know how this one is, right? Up to one of your opponent's leaders or characters cannot attack during this turn. So yeah, it's really amazing. We're running 2 of these. Next up, it's Frankie. This is the Egghead Frankie, 4/5/2. So on trigger, you draw 1 card. Then if you have 1 or less life, play this card. So at worst, it's going to be a trigger. I mean, it's going to be a trigger for a draw. Best case scenario, you also get a body, which is really nice. And you don't lose anything. You don't lose anything, which is amazing. Next up, we have Edison's. This is a 4/5/2. On play, if you have 2 or less life, draw 2 and trash 2. A little bit of cycling to help you out if the conditions are met. And then, of course, the trigger. If your leader is Vegapunk, you want to draw this card. Play this card. So, really good for getting another body. If, it's unexpected. You don't usually want to put this on top. You want to have it into your hand because it's a 2K. But if it's randomly on top, it's a really good thing. And then finally, 2 Satoris. So, honestly, with these 2 cards, and the trigger is you may trash 1 card to play this card. So you can mess around with the ratios of these 4 Beiges, 4 Satoris, etc. So these are just extras, but I feel like having more like triggers that just do good things, it just really works out with this deck. But yeah, these are your really good ones here. All right, time for the utility cards. We're running a couple of these. First of all, it's going to be the Nico Robin in 341. She is a secondary attacker, but for her usage, you primarily want to use her only for the trigger, which is if your leader is Egghead Draw 2 cards. So powerful. Draw is amazing in this deck, and the fact that you, as your leader, to send her back to tank a hit, and then you get 2 cards out of that, amazing. So we're running 3 of these Nico Robins. Next up, it's a searchers for the deck, but yeah, she's also an attacker. She's not in the pile because, I like separating between the events, the utilities, blah, blah, blah. All right, so anyway, utility. Lilith, on play, look at the top 5 cards, get 1 Egghead other than Lilith, and you put the rest. So this is really good if you just play it on 3. If you just play it on 3, it's amazing. But if you're able to even trigger it, it's awesome too. If your leader is Vegapunk, play this card. So you put it on top. They have to attack. On your turn, you search for a card. It's freaking amazing. So this is like, oh, so good too. I said that Shaka and this other card was 100% mandatory. Obviously, this too if you're running Egghead. So those are your utilities. All right, next, the final 4 cards are going to be these events. Please save me. Please save me. So it's a 1-use, 1-cost counter if you have 2 or less life. Up to 1 of your leaders or characters gaining 3,000 power. It's decent. However, I don't usually ever use this for it. I don't use it for the counter unless I have to. What you want to do 90% of the time is put it on top of your life for the effect. Trigger. Play up to 1 Egghead with a cost of 5 or less from your trash. Yes, this allows you to revive anybody. And this is amazing. There's a lot of good on-play thingies, but one of my favorite things to bring back is, of course, the Shaka. Bringing back a very powerful blocker is paramount in a lot of these Vegapunk games that I've played. So, what are the strengths and weaknesses? The strengths: if you get a really good early hand, a bunch of just straight Egghead cards, you just throw out the Luffys, you throw out the Liliths, you have a lot of good early game. Then, if your opponent has not really gotten, removed a lot of your board, just keep on piling onto your life for even more support. You throw out a Nico Robin, you throw out the Shaka because you know you're going to use them for blocker later. When everything gets KO'd, just please save me out. There's a lot of tech that you should be doing in this deck. You have these 4 blockers, but you don't want to always block with them. You want to use your triggers to your advantage, maybe just you have a Broly there, let an attack come out because you want to bring out a Luffy for your turn so you can KO, you can attack with him and then KO a 4-drop on your turn. It's a really fun and interesting deck. This is probably one of my most favorite leaders out right now that can't attack. What are the other ones? It's like Iceberg and then Rebecca. Is there another one? I don't remember. But Vegapunk's really fun. It's like one of the... It's not like meta deck. Like this one is not a meta deck. However, it is a fun mid-tier. And this is what I'm using so far. So if you guys like the video, subscribe. I'll be putting out a future Vegapunk video if the deck ever changes more drastically, like from the verse video to this video. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.